All right, things escalated. I got a bloody nose, and Dad's laying down, taking a nap. Yep. What are we doing today? That car, right there on the top, is getting a Holley Sniper fuel injection. And you gotta watch. All right, our next project is we're getting rid of this frickin' carburetor because it was pouring out of the power valve, and then we replaced that, and then the fuel pump was leaking, so we replaced that, and now the damn fuel pump has too much pressure, so it just blows the bowl out. So we're getting rid of it. So we're gonna show you how to install a 2-barrel Holley Sniper on a 66 Mustang with a 289. So we have some stuff laid out, so we'll get to it and show you the steps along the way. We are going to drain the fuel first, and I have got a drop-in fuel pump unit from Holley that should just replace this factory unit. And we've already discovered that we're fixing something else. The drain plug leaks, so that probably won't come out of there. But we're gonna try and take it out of there and then reseal it, because we gotta drain the fuel anyway, so we're gonna try that.
Here goes. We're attempting to get at least 2 gallons of fuel in the jug.
I don't know how much fuel was in here, but did you happen to look at it?
It's already petering out. Wow, we had lots. Oops.
It's gonna burp. We should probably take the fuel cap off of there. You got your little step stool, don't you?
Here, you entertain yourself with that.
I didn't make as much of a mess as I thought I was gonna make.
Well, we gotta drain that out so that we can pull that out.
All right, Dad's gonna take the fill cap loose, and then this should just start pouring out of there. There we go. Oh yeah. That's all the fuel coming out now. All right, the fuel, well, that's dripping out of there the rest of the way. I disconnected or cut the fuel line off because this will not suffice for the high pressure for the EFI. So you have to use the Earl's Vapor Guard. But this is the drop-in unit that goes in the tank. And in order to put that in there, you gotta take these 2 screws off so that you can cram all this in there. Once that's on there, of course. And then once this is in the tank, you can kind of align this back up and get these 2 screws in there. So that's what we're doing next. There's the factory fuel float. I did notice on this one that the float itself has fuel in it. So that's probably why that thing wasn't reading all that well as it's weighted. See the fuel sloshing around in there?
That's it right there.
And then you got to be careful pushing that in there, because it said that if you're not careful, you could potentially rip that sock. So you got to be careful.
So I'm trying to be careful. Okay, so let me get this guy in all the way. Okay, so now the sock is in there.
And now you got to get that positioned with the float in the tank and then put the screws back in it, right?
Yeah. Oh, there is gas in there still, yay. Okay. £23 inch. 22.5 inch pounds.
All right.
Okay.
Now I got to put the gasket on there and then the locking ring. All right, we got it in there. And the trick that we learned is, see these 2 little tabs right here? You know, this tab here and this tab here. That sets how this is clocked in there. So those tabs line up with two little notches that are in the fuel tank, so that you get it so it's set up like this, which makes sense because this is the factory fuel line and that's aimed right towards it. So then you just put a little bit of grease on that gasket to hold it up in place. This way when we went to go tighten it, the gasket's in the right location. So now we could put the drain plug back in there and probably put some fuel in there after we hook this up and make sure it doesn't leak, and then move on to the next thing. All right, we've jumped back into the engine compartment now. So what I've got to do is I got to get the old carb off of there. I've got to get the coolant temp sensor, so I've got a setup for this that I'll show you. We've got to get all of the old choke lines and all that crap off of there so that we can get the Sniper all mocked up and ready to go. All right, the carburetor is off. And you can see I dumped fuel everywhere, so that's good. We're going to need to get rid of these lines. So those go into the exhaust. Oh, look at, here's a little tiny screw. I wonder what that goes to. This was just sitting on top of the intake manifold. This goes to wherever there's a missing screw on this, I bet you. All right, Dad discovered that these just push into the exhaust manifold.
Down here and from the side down there.
So he just pulled those out of there. Those were what we're going through
for the choke
to operate the choke for the heater for the choke.
Yep.
So we just pulled those out of the manifold. And now those are out. As usual, didn't have the camera on when the good stuff's happening. Just trying to drain a little bit of coolant. It's everywhere. The Sniper has a coolant temp sensor, or it references a coolant temperature. And what we decided to do is the factory heater core 90 is right here. So we're going to take that out. We're going to thread this in there. And here's the sensor, and then put that heater core 90 right back in the top of that. So that is 3/8 NPT is what size all that is. So before we just go jamming this in here, see the issue this is going to cause? It's going to completely block off that sensor. So we're going to cut off this tube from this 90, and then we'll thread that all in. All right, here we go. So we cut that little extension off, so this is going to go like that. So we're going to get that taped up and stick it back in. Okay, there's the apparatus for the coolant temperature sensor, and then the heater core will go right back here. And it's like we're never even there. So what we're thinking is the factory linkage could maybe go to there. We might drill a hole between these two so that the linkage can go to that. Like that-ish. So we'll look at that. Figure out what. All right, we got that drilled. So the factory linkage is back in there, and Dad is going to make sure that it opens the throttle blades all the way. That's not, it doesn't open them all the way. So we can adjust that. All right, I think I went the wrong way, but I went one way.
Oh yeah, it's left now.
Okay, so we got to go the other way. All right, third time might be a charm.
Yeah, that's to the floor.
Really? Let go of it. Do it again. I mean, it's almost wide open throttle. That's as far as it'll go. That linkage is maxed out.
Well, I pulled the floor mat out.
Oh, hold on. Hold on. Don't do nothing. I gotta fix something. This little guy won't work on this linkage, because if you got it positioned like this, when you go wide open throttle, it peels this off, and the other way it won't go on there. It doesn't quite line up with this bracket. See how it doesn't want to bend any further? So I think what I'm going to do is take this and drill through and put a cotter key on there, because this will go to wide open throttle. So that's right. We just got to figure out how to retain it now. Fixed. I drilled it and I put a cotter pin in it, and it is upside down because there's clearance issues, but I'm going to bend it down so it's a little more presentable. There we go. Should be good to go. Back of it is where all the wiring comes out. So the coolant temp sensor line goes there. And then the OT one we just dropped down underneath. This is like the power bundle with the relay and the fuse, and we just use 2 existing holes that run the firewall. And then this is the main positive and the main ground that goes straight to the battery. And then these need to go to the fuel pump, or at least this blue one does. It goes all the way back to the fuel pump, so we gotta lift the car up and route that. All right, the negative to the coil is run. That's the yellow one right there. We kind of tucked it underneath the distributor.
And I'm just
along the coolant temp sensor.
bundling these guys up temporarily. We'll cover them once we get everything working and we're happy.
So the blue power wire that's for the fuel pump, this is what we did with it. So here's the relay and the fuse, and here is the blue power wire. What we did is those are conveniently located right there because there is already 2 holes in the firewall. So I just wanted to use those 2 holes. And then that blue wire is power. We figured out inside the cab where to drill that in relationship to the blower motor so that it is underneath the carpet so that you can't see it. And it's a little tiny hole with a grommet so that if you ever wanted to undo this, you could just put some silicone on it. So that's what that looks like. It's pretty clean looking. You can't really see any of that from up top neither. So that's what we were going for, is a nice clean look. So let's lower this down and work up there. So now we need to get this blue wire back to the fuel pump. So we got to lower the car back down. But anyway, and we already put the carpet back, but it goes underneath here. So I'm not going to pull that all the way out, but it's underneath. It's like right about here. And then we came over underneath the kick plate, and then I took the door sill plates out, and you've already got this little trough that's in here. This car is all original, so we don't have anything in that trough, but we're going to run this wire the rest of the way down this trough, and then we got to get it back basically from here back there. And it's going to go through the floor right here, which is where the factory cinder unit wire is at. So we're trying to put none to very minimal holes in the car. We want to keep it nice. All right, this is not the fastback car. It's a coupe. So it's got the rear windows that roll up and down like that. So what I wanted to watch out for is this wire is running through here, and then we put some sheathing on it to protect it because it goes through a couple panels and it's going to come out here. But we want to make sure that the window doesn't hit that wire. So the wire is right down here. So I'm going to roll it all the way down. Right now it's all the way up. I'm going to roll it all the way down and we'll see if it clears. That's all the way down. Looks like we have no issues with clearance. So that's good clearance. It goes across right there on the bottom, and then it just goes right behind this paperboard tray, which goes behind the seat, between the seat and the trunk. And then in the trunk, it just comes through right there. No holes needed to be drilled or anything. So then that is in real close proximity to where the hole in the floor already is, which is right there. So we just got to run that down through there, and then we'll lift the car back up and we will do the wiring for the fuel pump. There it is, going through the factory grommet. There you go. You can't even tell it's there. Plus the spare tire goes right here. That's what this guy is. So once that's all put back together, you won't even be able to tell. I used this little drill bit to drill a little bit of material out of that grommet just so that wire would slide through there a little bit better. Just be careful not to hit the factory send unit wire. This is underneath, so this is where that sender comes out. This is this factory wire right here. So this has got that pump in there. So these wires that are in this, one of these is going to be for the sender, one's for power, and then I believe 2 are ground. So we've got to make this, and this all happy. We got the fuel pump wired up. I tried to do as clean as possible. So here's what we got. Here's the pump with the wiring pigtail. We went up to a factory clip so we didn't have to drill any more holes. We went to another factory clip to retain it here. There's the plug, and then this side is the power for the pump, the sender unit. So this is a factory wire, and these are the grounds. So sender unit, power for the pump, ground, and ground. This is the factory wire here. And then this hole was already there. We just cleaned it up. So we're actually to a solid ground. The manual says that one of these is supposed to run back to the battery. We didn't do that because we do what we want. So we did it this way, and hopefully it's okay.
Okay, so got the fuel pump off, the plate on, and the line off. So here's what we're looking at. There's a plate, and don't get all excited because it's fancy schmancy chrome with ARP bolts. It was all stuff we had sitting around. Moving up to the top with the fuel line stuff, your fuel inlet is right here, and they give you an AN6 adapter that screws into the body like this guy. And I took this one out of the return side because we're not going to use the return. We don't need a line, and put a cap in there. Earl's Vapor Guard's fuel line fittings, they have all that stuff for you.
All right, the fuel system is 1 clamp away from being done. And we wanted to use the 5/16 hardline that was on this car originally. So the Holley fuel kit comes with 3/8 parts, so that wouldn't work. So what Dad did is he got on Rock Auto and he found this Wix 33595 filter that is supposed to be for a Thunderbird, fuel injected Thunderbird. But anyways, it's got the factory, it's not really barbs on it, but it's the factory, like the little push lock clips. And it was really difficult pushing that 5/16 line on there. We probably don't even need hose clamps. That's how difficult it was. We used the heat gun and the vise. Anyways, this is what that looks like. So we ran the line on this side of the coil because it'll hold the filter away from the exhaust manifold. And then it just goes to this hard line right here, but we don't have another clamp yet. So we're going to get another clamp, and then we're waiting for the O2 bung to get here. And O2 bungs are the same price for 10 of them on Amazon as they are from one from Holley. So, just so you know. I got my O2 bungs. This one is this Earl's one. Real nice quality unit. A lot of material there. This one and these other 19, or these other 9, sorry, are from Amazon. 10 of these cost the same as one of those. They are different. They're not exactly the same, but just so you know. These are $2 a piece. This is $20 a piece. All right, where are we going to put this O2 sensor? All right, the manual says oxygen sensor should be mounted at a point where it can read a good average of all the cylinders in one bank. So this would be after all the cylinders merge. If you have long tube headers, mount the sensor 1 to 10 inches after the collector, and you must have 18 inches of exhaust pipe after the sensor. Well, for us, we're going to have like 18 feet of exhaust pipe after the sensor because the whole exhaust. So we just need to mount the O2 sensor after the collector. So it can go anywhere in here on this side, or on this side. This is where the clutch linkage is at though, so this one might be trickier, but what I was thinking is just something like that. There's a little bit more room to drill right here than there is on that side. So let me hold some stuff up there and figure out exactly where I want to put it. That's where we decided it's gonna go. Specifically because I said so is the main reason. Seems like a giant hole because this exhaust is pretty small. But there we go. That was gracious. Alright, it's not pretty, so I'm not going to show it to you for very long, but look it. It's on there. Here we go. O2 sensor's in there. The cable for it runs over the transmission. It's tied to the speedo cable that was already up there. And then the plug is right there. So that just runs down the transmission tunnel, like right straight center in the transmission, up here and plugs in. So that's in there. All right, we're just so excited to see the screen come on that we're doing some ghetto rigging for power up there. So not permanent, but we're getting ahead of ourselves here. Oh, it did something. Things are happening.
Select wizard from the menu.
Okay.
You need to select your sniper system.
Engine displacement 10. Is this cubic inches? My fingers must be dirty because this screen does not like me touching
You
it.
have to touch it deliberately.
289. Target idle speed 700. Next, cam stock mild. Next, coil CD box.
Minus no timing control.
Next,
Power adder type none.
No, it doesn't even give me that. It just says 2302 XAA. So after coil, I selected coil minus.
Yep.
Next, then it says that.
After answering all the questions in your conversion, press the start button to send the calibration to the ECU. Oh, we're just shut it off because we're just pumping fuel all over the floor. Because we never hooked up that fuel line. I can hear it out.
Oh, great. Okay. Okay, good. We're gonna go ahead and fix that problem here.
Hook up the fuel line before we start a fire.
Okay, let's see what kind of disastrous mess we just made. All right, so this is what happens when the fuel line doesn't have anything hooked up to it. So that's something. So we'll go ahead and hook that line up right now. All right, if we look at the bright side, we just flushed the fuel line out by not having it hooked up and trying to run it. So that's.
And we even have floor dry on the floor from when we spilled antifreeze.
Yeah, so we were kind of prepared for this. All right, let's try this again. Maybe this time we won't be spraying fuel all over the place. Okay, so just turn the key on.
Let's see what it comes up as. On the home screen, select monitor.
Monitor.
Select monitor icon, then select the monitor screen. You will see
monitors.
One called initial
startup.
Slowly depress the throttle to wide open. It should read between 85 and 100.
$91.
Okay, good. Map sensor should read from 95 to 102.
85.
Okay. CTS, whatever the ambient temperature. IAC position.
58%.
Yeah, that's going to vary. Battery should be 12 volts minimum.
12.2, 12.3.
Okay. Fire it up.
Battery volts are real high.
So the IAC. 16.
I think we need a voltage regulator because it goes to red after it gets to 16 on this.
Does it?
Yeah, 17 volts isn't gonna work. I got a new voltage regulator and we're gonna replace it because I don't, 17 volts seems weird. This is clearly a problem that we had before this started, but we're gonna replace it. This is what O'Reilly had, made in China. So we're gonna try and swap that, restart it, retest. All right, new regulator is installed. So we're at 12.5 without anything running. So the air-fuel ratio is bouncing around quite a bit. I'm not sure if it's trying to fix itself or what. And I don't know why it's ramping, because this idle air control position is staying at 0%. I'm gonna turn it off and look at the manual. But it didn't look like our voltage jumped around anymore, so apparently that regulator wasn't a bueno. Alright, since it did start, even though it's doing some funky stuff, but it did start and it wants to idle, what I've decided to do, before I continue to start it and let it do its tuning thing, is I'm going to permanently run this remote switch wiring. So right now it's just hooked directly to the battery, so I'm going to disconnect that. Disconnect the battery, and I am going to look at the ignition and see if we could tie it into that. That's what we're gonna do. All right, I've been trying to lie under the dash and you can't get access to anything, so I want to look at the back of the ignition switch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the ignition switch out and I'm going to show you how to do that because it's a pain in the butt. So let me get you mounted in here where you can see. What you want to do is put the key in there, I have the battery disconnected, turn this to accessory, get something really tiny that'll press into this hole right here. There's a little, like a detent. You gotta press that down, you don't have to be crazy with it, just press it down enough that you could rotate the tumbler past the accessory, going that way. And you pull that right out. And then don't try and rotate this. You can, it's not a big deal, but see that little detent? It's right there. That's what you were pressing. So if you do happen to rotate it, that pops back in. You just got to press this in again and rotate past it. Now you got to get this out of the bezel. I'm going to reach underneath the dash with one hand if I can. So rotate the switch behind the dash counterclockwise. And then you can get it off of there. So it was real fun to do that, so it should probably never go back in there, which is good. I think we're gonna have to take the gauge cluster out because I can't hardly get to any of those wires. So that's what we're gonna work on now. All right, things escalated. I got a bloody nose and Dad's laying down, taking a nap.
Yeah,
we took the seat out because we're trying to find a switch 12-volt power on the factory fuse block. So got the gauge cluster out and he's laying underneath there trying to find that. That's what we're working on right now. I'll let you know what I'm pretty excited right now. We tore all of this apart so that we could find out that this wire right here is a switch. It's a switch power.
It's the only one that is switched.
Yeah. So now we're deciding some stuff. So anywho, this wire, if your 66 Mustang is the same, is the, what is that color combination?
It is red with a blue stripe.
Red with a blue stripe. So that's our 12-volt switch power. So we're going to run the 12-volt switch power from the harness, which wire is that? The pink one?
Pink.
Which is the pink one from the main harness. We're going to run that over and tap it into that. But it's a good thing we tore the inside of the car apart because we got to get this cable for the little dash guy. We need to get that into the car. So I'm going to take this AC panel off of there and drill a hole in there so that we could pass that through. Don't go digging around under the dash for no reason. Just find the switched one that's out here. Red with a blue stripe. This is why we're learning together. Okay, we got the 12-volt switch wire connected. That's right here. So that was already tucked down behind the coil on this. And we ran the handheld plug through it. So now the handheld is inside and it's got a nice grommet on the firewall. So crap can't get in here. So that looks like that. Now I just got to put all this disaster back together. And voila, it's back together. The magic of editing. You didn't even have to sit and watch me struggle, put that sill plate in and take it out 17 times because I forgot to put everything else around it. Because I'm an idiot. Anyways, we're going to start it and see if it's good to go.
Where's the IAC at?
0. What do you think?
Idling a little high?
Yeah, so the idle air control position, which is that one, is at 0. So we're going to let it idle for a bit and warm up. And then we might have to adjust where the throttle blade position is at for idle. So we might have to unscrew that because it is idling at 1300 RPM. It's bouncing between 1150 and 1350. So Dad is adjusting the throttle blade screw and the IAC is actually moving. 1 to 11. 1 to 50. That was 0 throttle input.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's nothing but fuel injected now. So pumping doesn't do anything.
When it very first started, it was idling smooth because the IAC was at 20, and now it's allowing it to go down to 0, and that's what's ramping.
Okay, put your foot on it.
I mean, I'm barely on the throttle right now.
Well, just keep it running, let it warm up.
It's getting better. It's learning, and it's idling smoother. Our AFR is a little bit high, but I mean, it is at idle. Target's 13, so it's learning, it's trying. All right, we went and had lunch for Dad's birthday, and now we're back, so this thing should be cool. So we're gonna try and start it without any throttle input and see what it does for idle. And you're gonna watch. That's pretty awesome. Idle air control valve is working. See its percentage? Target RPM is 750, so it's working on that. AFR is good. Coolant, it did cool down about 50 degrees, but it's still warm. And it's learning. That's good. We're gonna move some stuff so we can pull it off the lift. Okay, you're really crooked, but we're gonna go take it for its first test drive. It doesn't seem to like when you let off the throttle. So Dad's in the passenger seat with the screen and I'm driving. And there's fourth gear. Aggressive acceleration, and I feel like I was barely even in the throttle.
You weren't, yeah.
So then fourth gear, what happens when I get on it?
It says you're at 65%, and it's dropping the air fuel down to 12.8, 13.2, which is what it
right, the first drive was successful. I didn't even kill it, not even once. It's learning and it's driving pretty good. We did a couple of underload tests we got on the highway, so we're gonna let it cool down while we're doing other stuff and then try and start it, make sure that the warm start is good, and then we'll just have to continue to drive it and test it out. So now you know how to install one of these on your 66 Mustang, so long as everything is exactly the same on your car. I don't know if it's the same for 65 or 64 or 67 or any of those, so don't ask me, I don't know.